All right, good evening to our listeners. This is Lauren Schmidt from the KMUD News Department. Tonight, I am joined by Bonnie Blackberry of the Civil Liberties Monitoring Project, as well as 2nd District Supervisorial Incumbent Estelle Fennell and 2nd District candidate Michelle Bushnell. For the next 2 hours, we hope to get to know the two candidates and educate our community so that all can cast an informed vote on November 3rd. During the March 3rd primary, Supervisor Fennell fell short of securing 50% plus one of the votes. The Humboldt County Office of Elections reported that Estelle Fennell had a total of 47.54% of that vote, with Michelle Bushnell, the runner-up, totaling 31.2%. The supervisor term of office is 4 years with no limitations of number of terms served. The annual salary is around $90,000. Community members will be able to participate this evening by calling into KMUD Radio when we open the phone lines later into this program. The number at that time is 707-923-3911. Listener questions must be addressed to both candidates. All questions must respect the participants as well as our listeners. Although we are currently coming to you live over KMUD Radio, this forum will be recorded and shared on the KMUD News social media sites. You can also email news@kmud.org for a copy. Each candidate will be given the same question and have 2 minutes to answer. Each candidate is also allotted 1 minute, a 1-minute rebuttal if they so choose. Natalie West is our timekeeper and will warn candidates when their time draws close. We ask that both candidates please respect the time limit. Before we begin this live broadcast, we had both candidates flip a coin to determine who shall give their opening and closing statement first. So tonight we begin this forum with candidate Michelle Bushnell, who will share their opening statement. Thank you so much.
Hi, Lauren. Thank you for having me tonight. Hi, I'm Michelle Bushnell. I'm a 4th generation Southern Humboldt resident who was raised on a cattle ranch by my grandparents. Together, my husband and I have raised our 6 children in the Southern Humboldt area. I have always deeply cared about my community and been proactive in helping wherever I see the need. I believe that if I were to be elected, I will be a diligent and transparent supervisor for the 2nd District. What I feel is unique about me is that I own and operate a number of businesses, including a cattle ranch, sustainable timber production, a trucking and logging hauling, and a retail clothing store. Additionally, I do a lot of volunteer work through my roles on the school board and local chamber of commerce and as a Rotarian. I will bring this range of knowledge and experience to the office of supervisor. With my leadership qualities and your input, we can make the positive changes that we seek. I understand the importance of having an effective working relationship with my fellow board members. Working together is the best way to make positive change. Amongst the many concerns affecting the 2nd District and Humboldt as a whole, the following are some which deserve our attention. Promoting economic stability throughout the 2nd District, improving rural infrastructure, streamlining operations of County Planning Department for responsible business development, creating solutions for supporting our elderly and mentally unwell and homeless populations. More prominent presence of law enforcement and decreased response times in unincorporated areas. A focus on Veterans Affairs. A vote for me is a promise to you that I will practice common sense government with integrity, and I will listen and be your voice. Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle Bushnell, and incumbent 2nd District Supervisor Estelle Fennell.
Hi, well, welcome everybody. I'm running for re-election because I have a deep responsibility to my district and our county. And at a time like this, we need continuity, experience, proven ability to get things done by working with each other and trusted partners at local and state government, as well as community leaders at every level. We're currently facing many challenges, from a historic pandemic to unprecedented wildfires, not to mention the economic impacts of both. The only way forward is a strong, steady approach rooted in the knowledge and experience of governmental processes that will get things done. Now more than ever, we need that continuity. In the period since the March primary, my #1 priority as your supervisor has been working with our emergency response team and community leaders, putting action plans in place and implementing them to help essential services, families, schools, local businesses, and workers navigate through and recover from the COVID-19 pandemic. Now, that steady approach means that actually, as of today, we're one of the few counties in California in the least restrictive tier, as defined by the governor's task force and the California health officer. The work we accomplished in putting a top tier emergency response team in place has also helped us to respond quickly to the historic August fire, which is currently threatening our county. I'm running for re-election because I want to continue that work, as well as the many projects affecting our district. We have a lot on. I think one thing I would like to say is that we've got our planning department here now in Redway, and that's a place where people can go to do business with the county right here in downtown Redway. Also, we've got some phases coming up now, or the improving of downtown Garberville and Redway Drive intersection in Redway. We've got a sign off from the FAA to move forward with the Garberville Hospital, and we've also got our community park approved. A lot of things that have been going on. I've championed Measure Z and ensured that all of our rural firefighters were included in the ballot measure to receive Measure Z funding. The majority of rural departments are in my district, and they're now finally getting the kind of funding they need for situations like that. Thank you very much for that. I've got lots more to say, but we'll have plenty of time to do it. So thank you very much.
Okay, thank you so much. We'll get to the questions. Most of these questions were submitted via email to the news department, as well as to the Civil Liberties Monitoring Project. I will ask the first question, and then Bonnie and I will rotate. So without further ado, we'll start with you, Supervisor Fennell. Why do you think you are most qualified for this position?
Well, I think I went into that a little bit, in my opening statement. Obviously, I have the experience that's needed. I have been involved on many different levels of county government, and it's a tough job, I'll tell you that much. I've also been chair of the board 2 times. I'm currently chair right now, and I can tell you in the era of Zoom, that's been quite a challenge as well. I think that my ability to step up to the challenge and work with people makes me the ideal candidate. Also, I've experienced many different areas, working now with the Potter Valley Project, working with the Office of Emergency Services, as I mentioned earlier, making those connections with the state and federal representatives, making connections with the local representatives in the local cities in Fortuna, Rio Dell, etc. Of course, making connections with all of the people who make this county work. I think that kind of level of experience is really important now as we go forward. We have so many issues that we're dealing with, and I think that in that situation, you really need somebody who knows what they're doing. We've got a lot of things on the front burner, if you will. We're dealing now with the legalization of cannabis and what that can mean to the future of Southern Humboldt and Humboldt County as a whole. Been doing a lot of work on that, and I'll be able to tell you more about that as we go forward. We're also working on how do we revitalize our economy. I've been very involved with that, with the community emergency response team, sending out and helping people in the community. And I hope I get to talk about that some more. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Supervisor Fennell. Michelle Bushnell, the same question. Why do you think you're more qualified for the position of 2nd District Supervisor?
I think that my involvement with Southern Humboldt as a whole has been great. My involvement with the schools, my involvement with the Chamber of Commerce. I'm a quick learner. I catch up quick, and no doubt Estelle has a lot of past history. I want to bring something new to the forefront, and I would be as diligent continuing on with what has been there. I am a very quick study, and I don't know it all, but I will learn it. I will make educated decisions. I think that I have a lot of energy, and I think that we need a lot of energy with our supervisors. I think we need open-mindedness. I think that people that run businesses have a different aspect and something to add to the table. I think that I'm willing to listen to people. I'm willing to get out there and hear people's concerns and expectations. I also am a grounds-on person. I want to be everywhere. I wanted people to know me. I want to know their opinions. I want to listen to people. I want to investigate those types of things so that I have an educated opinion. I think just my energy and I work well with people. I always want to organize and get together and find solutions. I'm very solution oriented, and I'm a very helpful person. But I always investigate the subjects and learn as much as I can when I don't know something about what's going on. So I just feel that I would be a fresh light and a fresh breath for Humboldt County and the 2nd District.
Thank you, Michelle Bushnell. Bonnie, would you like to ask this next question?
Okay, yeah, I was going to do a two-part question. Recognizing that the supervisorial seat is a nonpartisan position, what political party are you registered to, and which candidate do you see fit to be president of the United States for the next 4 years? And I guess we'll start with Estelle.
Well, you're absolutely right, Bonnie. This is very mindful of that. This is where the rubber hits the road when it comes to representing the people of our area, our district, our county. That being said, I am a registered Democrat, always have been. And with the current situation, I believe I will be voting for the Democratic candidate. I think it's important to vote for the person, not for the party. And that is really important to me. And I think that as far as nonpartisanship goes, I have support across the spectrum. There's no doubt about that at all. And I enjoy working with people from every side of the political spectrum. I don't actually particularly like bringing partisan questions up, but I am absolutely very, very happy. Anyone who knows me knows I'm a registered Democrat, and I have been my whole life.
Okay, thank you, Michelle.
Hi, Bonnie, how are you?
Hi. Hanging out.
I'm currently a registered Republican. I have been my whole life. I was raised by my grandparents. If that says anything, they would have been in their 90s. I actually am not very fond of the party system, as I believe that people can change their minds quite, frequently according to candidate. As far as who I will be voting for this year, there's a lot of information to still come. And so I'm still up in the air who I would be voting for. And this being a nonpartisan position, I also have a lot of respect and friends on both sides. And I don't align always with Republicans. I don't always align with Democrats. That's one reason the party system kind of bugs me a little bit. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And Lauren, maybe you could ask the next two questions and then I'll take the next one.
Sure, no problem. And since we started with Supervisor Fennell, Michelle, we'll do a back-to-back, start with you again. Can you share your thoughts on the Black Lives Matter movement, and do you believe Black Lives Matter?
I do believe Black Lives Matter. I believe that the Black Lives Matter is about, since it's come up, I have sought a lot of information and tried to educate myself more about it. And equality is the number one thing that I hear for Black Lives Matter. And I just believe that Black Lives Matter and equality is super important.
Thank you, Michelle Bushnell. Supervisor Fennell.
Yes, absolutely. And in fact, I think it's important for people in my position to be clear on the issues of the day, especially when they come down to the very ground level here in our own Humboldt County, and was very honored to speak at a Black Lives Matter educational forum in Fortuna that I thought was one of the most wonderful things that I've been involved in for a while, because we had young Black women from Eureka and Fortuna, people who were parents of mixed race, and talking about their experience. And it's important for us to understand that and to hear from the people that are affected by it. I think that it's also important to understand that the children who are coming up are very motivated to make sure that things are changed and in a good way. I also reflect back, and I'm old enough to remember the 60s, early 70s, and it seemed to me that there was less division then, at least among those who were activists, etc. And it's a shame that things have gotten to this stage again. And I don't particularly know that it's an issue that really is addressed so much in our county, although we do have a lot of requirements as to deal with equity. It's a very important part of our county infrastructure, but nonetheless, as leaders, I think we need to make that conscious decision to speak out.
Thank you, Supervisor Fennell. We'll start the next question with you as well. Do you support Central Del Pueblo's measure to make Humboldt County a sanctuary county? Did you support that? Why or why not?
Oh, I did, but I think that it came before the Board of Supervisors, and I was concerned about it because I felt that there were some parts of it that were not going to be a good fit. That being said, I think that it was good that it went to the voters. And that's kind of the way those kinds of measures should go. You should hear from people on issues that are important to them. I personally believe that there wasn't really a need for it. I did voice this. I do believe that Humboldt County was already operating under state guidelines, which did not allow law enforcement to hold people who were brought in for ICE and all of those. And we now, as a result of that, we have reports every year that tell us how many people have actually been held for us and none or one. So that was the belief system I was coming from when we were discussing it at the board level. I felt like we were already there, but the voters had their say. So.
Thank you, Estelle Fennell. Michelle Bushnell, same question. And again, let me know if you need me to repeat anything.
Can you repeat the question, please?
Absolutely. Did you support Central Del Pueblo's effort to pass Measure K to make Humboldt County a sanctuary county? Why or why not?
I would have to say that in instances, yes, I think that a sanctuary county is very important, and to go along with the state laws, and that the voters spoke means great, because that's what as a supervisor, you're representing your constituents. I would have concerns, not concerns, but I would want to make sure that the sheriff's department and the people that need the means to do what they need for their job, I would want to make sure that those were taken care of also.
Thank you. And Bonnie, if you want to go to your questions.
Okay. In Northern Humboldt, needle exchange programs are at risk of closing. Do you support Southern Humboldt's needle exchange program through Redwoods Rural? So I guess we're back at Estelle.
Okay, so there's, I think I've had issues with this only because I've seen instances, I'm aware of instances where people who were drug addicted were being handed enormous numbers of needles without having to give any in return. So I support a one-for-one exchange. I support a well-run exchange, which, yeah, I would believe Redwoods Rural would do that. I think that the county health department is providing that and providing kiosks for people to put their used needles. We really don't want to see used needles on the street. We also don't want to enable drug pushers who are out there coming in and getting way more needles than they can actually use. But it's been proven by a study done in Eureka that some of those needles were being given to people who were then selling drugs and providing the needles. That's not what we want to enable. But again, I do support safe exchange one-for-one that makes sure that there are no contaminated needles on the street, and also that the people who are using them don't spread disease.
Okay, and Michelle, would you like me to read that again?
Yes, please.
Okay, in Northern Humboldt, needle exchange programs are at risk of closing. Do you support Southern Humboldt's needle exchange program through Redwoods Rural?
I would support the needle exchange program. However, I also think a one-to-one exchange is so necessary. Also, I would encourage that if we could get different color needles or syringes so that we would know when we are picking up needles on the streets where they're coming from, or if they are in the Northern Humboldt, Southern Humboldt area. They know that we don't want to encourage drug use, and our goal would be to try to help people. So that education needs to go along with it, which I understand does happen or is available if they need it. But I definitely would be insistent of a one-to-one exchange and possibly a color-coded needle or syringe so that we could identify where the most needles, they end up on the ground. Everybody sees them. They don't always get exchanged like they're supposed to. And that would be something we really need to work on doing better, is that so we don't see them so much prevalent in our communities.
Okay, thank you. And my next question.
Oh, Supervisor Fennell, did you have a quick rebuttal? Oh, would you like to use one of your 1-minute rebuttals?
Yeah, I basically what I want to do is clarify something. When Bonnie referenced Northern Humboldt, she was talking about a private entity. The Humboldt County Department of Health and Human Services is actually providing needle exchange. That's important. And with regard to the separate colors, I support that too. But I think that if you got everything going through the county, Redwoods Rural, those kind of places, the issue will not be as large as when you have a private group exchanging way more than they need to. Thank you.
Okay, Bonnie, did you want to ask the next one?
Okay, I want to go to the COVID-19, and Michelle, first, where do you stand on masks and social distancing?
I wear a mask. I am insistent on my staff wearing a mask, and I social distance. I believe that COVID-19 is real and on the forefront, and in order for us to get through COVID-19, that we have to utilize the guidelines that they are giving us. I do believe that it is possible, and it is happening every day, to protect yourself by using masks and hand sanitizers and doing social distancing. I do, that's it. Wear a mask, stay 6 feet apart.
Okay, great. Estelle?
Wear a mask 6 feet apart, wash your hands. And I think the most important part of this is staying a steady course. And I'm very happy have been very supportive of the guidelines that were put forward by the state and the county, because even though there was some pushback on it, what we can say now is because of the efforts that we have put in, that I've been working with the Office of Emergency Services, the Joint Information Center, and of course the health officer. And because of the work that we have been doing, we now are in the lowest tier possible. It's called the yellow, which is basically very mild concern about COVID's impact, potential impact. Now, that being said, if we don't hold to this kind of better behavior, we could very quickly go back into the orange where it's more restrictive. But the good news that being in the yellow tier now, instead of 25% capacity at bars, for instance, now it's going to be 50%. Also, saunas can open up, and family entertainment centers can now go from 25% to 50%. And that, of course, is with all of the precautions in place. So the bottom line here is stay the course. We've seen the results of not staying the course at the very highest levels of our country, at the very highest level of our country. It is tempting not to take those precautions, but the bottom line is they work, and so I support them.
Excellent. Thank you both. Really quickly, I want to invite our listeners that if you have any questions for the candidates, you can start calling our engineer, Larry Lashley. Thank you, Larry, at 707-923-2605. Or pardon me, that is the news line. I am very used to saying that. The number to the studio is actually 707-923-3911. Again, that's 923-3911. Larry will take down your questions, and then at the top of the hour, after we go to a 5-minute break to get water and freshen up, we will start to integrate those questions into tonight's form. So please go ahead. You can start calling them in to 707-923-3911. Moving to the next question. I believe Michelle started that last segment. So Estelle, we'll start again with you. Do you have any plans or ideas on how to further assist businesses moving through the next phase of COVID-19 economic recovery?
Yes, absolutely. In fact, I would just say in Humboldt County has had that in mind right from the get-go. And so we established right in the Emergency Operations Center as a certain pod that deals with helping businesses. And I'm happy to say that we just sent out about $600,000 in various ways to local businesses. And we'll hopefully be able to do more of that if they can get it together in Washington, D.C. In the meantime, I think that regardless of that, we here in Humboldt County are here to help. We have the Arcadia Economic Development Center. We have SBA, all working together, including places like the city of Fortuna, which has helped put in matching funds to help businesses. That's the way we need to go. The other way we need to help businesses move forward is obviously what we're just done, which is to get us to the point where we're on such a low tier that more business can happen. And then we keep the focus on that, keep people safe, keep making sure that people don't forget. And I will say the latest thing also from the county now is we're coming into flu season. And I know people don't like doing vaccinations, but if you can at all get yourself to the space where you would feel good about taking a vaccination, do get vaccinated for flu, because the combination of those could set us back tremendously, and we might have to close our business again. Don't want to do that. We want to keep going. And so that's how I would help, is just keep on doing what we're doing, helping every which way we can, get money in people's pockets and get people feeling safe enough that they can actually patronize those businesses.
Okay, thank you, Supervisor Fennell. Michelle Bushnell, to go back to that question real quick, what are some of your ideas and plans to further assist the businesses moving through the next phase of COVID-19 economic recovery?
Well, first of all, I think all businesses are essential. And I feel if you're safe with a mask and you can distance in our rural area, in most of our small businesses, it's possible to do that and to restrict people coming in. I do think that we could work with our local chambers and promote local businesses and to stay in our community instead of traveling outside of our community. To really get the local businesses really need to get the word out that they are using masks, they're doing social distancing, and that their staff is staying within our area and practicing those precautions also when they're out and about and not at work. I think that we, as a Humboldt County, really need to promote to shop local. And I know that there's a huge push, especially when all of our businesses were closed, people were ordering online. That doesn't help our county. It doesn't help our local mom and pops. And I know my business went through a struggle, and we don't need to close. If you can go to a large store and be safe, you can go to a small store that has less people in there. And our small businesses are struggling. We are one of the safest counties right now. Even when we had higher numbers, we were a lot safer than a lot of other counties. And the mental and the struggle that people are having with their businesses, threatening to go into bankruptcy, we just need to keep our businesses open, promote local sales, promote local through our chambers. And Fortuna has Fitbit, that's a great a source of information, and try to get through the next few months. As far as the flu season, yes, the flu is going to come around, but it's not COVID, it's the flu. And hopefully wearing those masks and staying the distance will even lower the flu transmission.
Thank you, Michelle Bushnell. We started with Estelle last one, so Michelle, for this one.
I'd like to do another.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you very much. I really want to stress how important it is to understand that at a certain point, if we do get to a stage where we have several important outbreaks or big outbreaks, we will have to pull back. So let's not do that. Let's make sure that we're not in that position. And I did want to add, with the Joint Information Center, we have what's called a compliant business list. And there's like almost 3,000 in there now, 2,700, something like that. You can go online and find out which businesses are compliant or not. Most of them are. And I think it's a great system, and we'll continue with that.
Thank you, Estelle. Okay, Michelle, we're going to start this one with
I
you.
actually would like to say something.
Oh, please.
Thank you. Yes, I understand that staying safe is, and if we get down to lower numbers, that the county would require certain businesses to close. But we have, as a county, been doing really well. And as I said, wear your mask, stay your distance, and let's promote local sales.
Thank you. And Michelle, we're going to you with this one. Can you share your thoughts on the federal response to the coronavirus outbreak in this country?
Well, that's a big question. Yes, I can share my thoughts. I think that there was a lot of miscommunication and that there was a lot of unknowns. So there was being scared, people, especially the federal, not having all the information. Let me think here. I think that there was a lot of misinformation and unknowns, so it created a lot of confusion. I think possibly we could have reacted a little sooner and a little faster with guidelines with masks and that type of thing to maybe have decreased the numbers in the more populated areas. I still think there's a lot of confusion behind coronavirus and a lot of information that's not known. And I'm hoping in the future that we can just get to some solid ground and know exactly what we're dealing with and have straight guidelines from the feds so that we can just move forward as humanity can just move forward, because it's been very difficult for people. And fear is a huge thing. It drives a lot of people, fear drives people, and it's just a hard thing to deal with.
Thank you, Michelle Bushnell. Supervisor Fennell, your thoughts on the federal response to the coronavirus outbreak?
Well, I'm not running for president, but what I can say is that miscommunication, big deal. I do believe that it's not accurate to say that people didn't know. The federal government knows. The federal government had the scientists, the federal government had the experts, the federal government could have taken a stronger role, which might have helped a little better. That being said, putting it out to the states was fine, but what that did, in my view, is to a certain degree created that confusion with people. You could have people saying, look what they're doing in Alabama. Everybody gets to go hang out in the swimming pool, that kind of thing. It's like, so a steady, clear message would have been extremely helpful. However, I think we're getting there. I think nobody could have known what we were facing, although there had been warnings about this kind of a pandemic and how we should respond to it. There had been actually PPEs that were stored that were gotten rid of. And so a little bit of backpedaling now, but let's just look to the future. Let's hope that we're all getting closer and closer to the same page and understanding. And I think that we'll get there.
Thank you, Estelle. Fennell. Bonnie, if you want to take the next few questions.
Okay, I think I'm going to jump over to the cannabis marijuana. The first question is, knowing where we are now with the legalization here in Humboldt County, is there anything that you would do differently? I guess we'll start with Estelle.
Okay, Bonnie. Well, I think that, I know that, let's talk about legalization just for a minute here. I know that for some people, legalization probably meant that they could continue to do what they've been doing, but now would be legally sanctioned by the state. But that's not the way it works. So legalization brings regulations, requirements to ensure the consumer is protected and to ensure that the environment is protected. So our challenge at Humboldt County was to make sure that marijuana did not become another Central Valley crop with no room for legacy growers. And that's why we insisted on local control. Our program promotes best management practices, environmental protection, supports appellation of origin, organic standards, regenerative agriculture. These are all approaches that will stand the test of time, and I think strengthen Humboldt's brand of legacy enterprise and high quality product. That being said, just recently we did make a change, and I'm very glad that we did do it, because there's some things that while we were putting this together, maybe slipped through the cracks, like the Triple R program. People have been exploiting that and stacking huge numbers of Triple Rs in small parcels. And then the other thing that we're done now, and I'm very proud of, is the small farmers, 2,000 square foot tier that will have less requirements, will be a much easier permit to get. That's something would have loved to have had from the beginning, the best you can. And so we will make corrections as we go along.
Okay, and Michelle.
Can you read the question again, Bonnie?
Yeah, knowing where we are now with the legalization here in Humboldt County, is there anything that you would do differently?
I would have started with the legacy growers to begin with. 5 years or 4 years into this process, and now the 2,000 square feet comes along. A lot of those people can't financially even do that now. I would have started with those small growers if that was Humboldt's intent. I would have not continually changed laws or rules or policies. I guess they were policies. And I understand that it was a moving situation and we were learning as we were going. It wasn't easy when you get one set of rules and then you get another set of rules and things change in between. It was a very hard process. It's been a very hard process. It's been a very confusing process. I think that if we could have had a cannabis consultant, someone that knew cannabis as a liaison, working with the planning department, I think it would have benefited. I know that it would have benefited Humboldt County growers. And to have that information is crucial. And I know Humboldt is trying, but it is still a very difficult process.
Okay. And I,
I'd like to add a little something to that. Obviously, I'm in a bit of a different position than Michelle is, but got to remember that actually, if you wanted to have a 500 or 700 acre permitted grow, you could do that right from the. What we did see was the very confusing situation with consultants not really understanding some of the law. But also, I think the most important part of it was that it is an onerous thing. It is very difficult to establish on those businesses with all of the state regulations. So what we're trying to do now with the small farmers allowance is a very clean cut, very short process, and I'll talk about that more because I'm running out of time.
okay, so my next question is related, and seems like there's a lot of permits for grow scenes that are using diesel generators, and I would like to know if you would support monitoring the diesel deliveries for who's getting it, what purpose, and how much. And I guess I'll start with Estelle.
Okay, well, first of all, I think that the regulations that we put together at the county said that use of diesel generators in general was not part of a permitted program, or not to be in the final analysis. You either had to be on PG&E or solar or something like that, but not a generator. So there are people who are using them now who won't be in the future, but there are also people who are in the black market using diesel generators, and that's a really big deal as well. I'm not 100% sure that the law would allow, I brought this up actually. I thought it was pretty easy idea. You could just find out where it's going, but the law has certain restrictions on what you can do about deliveries, those kind of things. However, what I will say is this: I really, really don't like it. Just flat out think, why can't you grow on the ground, first of all? But if you are growing in a greenhouse, well, then why don't you just use alternative energy, or I just don't think we need to be going there. And we're talking about appellations, etc. Now we want the product that comes out of Humboldt County to be clean and not to be polluted with the kind of carbon fumes that come out of generators, etc. So bottom line, anything we can do to reduce the use of generators in cannabis business, I will support.
Okay, I just want to say that the first ordinance 0.1 or whatever it is allowed generators, and there was just one that came before the planning commission where the planning department was in full support of a 137,000 gallon diesel grow. So it's the 2.0 doesn't allow the generators, but you have a situation where there's a lot of grows that have generators. So I'll go back and ask Michelle if she would be supporting monitoring diesel fossil fuel use and where it's going and what purpose and how much they're using.
Thanks, Bonnie, for the question. You are correct. 1.0 did allow diesel generators. Under 2.0, you can't. I don't know that I don't think it would be legal actually to monitor where and who's getting diesel deliveries. There are lots of diesel deliveries for other things besides generators. Specifically for cannabis permits, I would encourage, not everybody can use solar. Some cannabis permits are not in areas that would allow them, that have that sun coverage, or they work longer, earlier when the sun doesn't, in April and May when there's not a lot of sun. I would encourage generator use with propane if you could, which is a cleaner fuel. I do think responsibility with diesel, whatever the reason is you're getting it, is so important. It destroys our land. Diesel spills are terrible. They destroy our land. They destroy our creeks and rivers. But I don't think it would be, I know that it would not be legal to monitor diesel deliveries. We have a lot of ranches in our area that use equipment, and those diesel deliveries come in for equipment. My logging trucks use diesel. So I would support clean emissions for cannabis growing in whatever way we can figure that out, but to also recognize that solar is not always available for people, nor is PG&E.
Okay, so just kind of a follow-up. So you do support the use of generators to grow marijuana?
No, I don't support the use of generators. I support that a choice that we have to find something that works for people, that not every area is able to use solar. And I'm not sure what that would be like. Maybe it wouldn't be allowing those cannabis permits in areas that weren't sufficient, that didn't have power. I know that there are a lot of new regulations and rules and policies with 2.0 that are addressing those issues.
Well, one thing that is possible is growing in the sun.
Yeah.
They don't need the
Yes.
generators.
Yes, absolutely. I think Humboldt County is known for its full sun cannabis.
Yeah, except now we've got the generator grows. Okay, so
Can I just add a little something?
Yes.
Can I just add, Bonnie, I mean, we have to find a better way. I mean, when you say that 1.0 allowed it, basically what we were doing, remember this, is we were trying to get an industry that was completely off the books and had absolutely no controls into some kind of way where we could guarantee that the consumer would unpolluted product and that the environment would be protected. But there had to be this kind of door where you allowed people who didn't have those situations. But the bottom line is I don't want people using generators all along. I hear people complain about generators. I hear people complain about fans. We got to find ways where it does not impact the environment or the neighbors. And those are the kind of things we're looking at now as we move forward. And I know that the Planning Commission has actually will be sending a notice to us, asking us to take a look at how we should look at generators. So that'll be coming up soon.
Okay, thank you so much, Estelle and Michelle. Oh, Michelle, would you like to add something?
I would. I want to say that we want to promote successfulness in the cannabis industry. And I understand the issues 100% with generators. And I understand the noise pollution, the spillage that happens. Generators are also used for people that live off the grid, which is a lot of people in Humboldt County. And solar is not readily available all the time in the winter when there is no sun. And I understand the issues, yes, but we also need to look out for our people and not make it so difficult. I'm not saying that I promote generator use for cannabis growing, but we need to find solutions if we're going to restrict people so much.
Okay, thank you so much. We're coming up on the top of the hour. I'm trying to get at least one more question, if not two, in before that time, where we will take a 5-minute break. Michelle, this one we'll start with you. Do you believe cannabis growers have been treated unfairly by the State Water Board and CDFW? And if so, would you be an advocate for them?
I think that, yes, I would be an advocate for them. And yes, I do think that things have been difficult with those departments. Yes.
Supervisor Fennell.
Yes, I do. I think that we've had some issues with that. And in fact, I have been an advocate. I've met with the director of Fish and Wildlife, Senator McGuire, and we have talked about our concerns about some of the activities that engages in. It's extremely difficult for a statewide agency to understand things at the ground level, but we understand. And there's been a bit of friction between the county and those agencies sometimes because we actually get it. And so absolutely, I'm an advocate for people being able to meet the requirements that are the intent of the law without nitpicking down to crazy levels that make it very difficult for people and very costly.
Okay, thank you, Supervisor Fennell. I think we do have time for one more, and we'll start with you, Estelle. What is your stance on the abatement program?
Well, you know, the abatement program, actually, I have to say, I was disappointed with some of the rollout of the abatement program. I think the county made mistakes, and that was not really good. Some smaller grows were swept up, especially in the earlier abatements, and actually what they are notices of violation, and you clear them up through an abatement. And it was really hard for them. Now, I helped many of them and worked with the county to resolve those mistakes with no fines. But we have to remember those large potential fines are really tied to the egregious situations that we've seen. It was a way for the county to try and rein in and deal with the destructive, devastating practices that were going on out there in our environment. You know, like a green rush grows from locals as well as out-of-towners. These destructive megagrows have taken an incredible toll on our community and our environment, and on our watersheds, our roads, our wildlife, bringing human trafficking, fires, violence, murder, and overall quality of life for those around here being affected. So yes, even though there were millions of dollars flowing through our communities and creating an economic boom during the green rush, it was also killing us figuratively and literally. So almost everyone I talk with acknowledges that one of the most positive effects of legalization has been forcing many of those destructive green rush grows to pull up stakes and leave our area, work on that level. And I think that it is difficult. I applaud the people who are going through the process, and I really think we're seeing the benefits from that.
Okay, Michelle Bushnell, your stance on the county's abatement program.
My understanding that the abatement program was to encourage people to come into compliance. A lot of fear came with the abatements that went out, and it wasn't just small grows, large grows. It was a lot of grows, sometimes not even a grow there, and you were abated. I think that we could have done a better job as a county to not do this, use the scare tactics of large amounts of fines. I think code enforcement could have not been tried to be law enforcement. They're not law enforcement. I would really love for the abatement program to, instead of sending out this letter that says you have 10 days, you're going to get these fines, to say, and they tried to last year to send out a new set of abatements to warn people because that's what the community wanted. But in fact, they sent out so many letters to even people growing tomatoes. And once again, people were scared. So I think that if abatements, the purpose for abatement was to encourage compliance, then we could have went about it a different way with less scare tactics. I also think that the county as a whole could have listened more to people and tried to, and I understand that the county is a department of government and you hear a lot of things and people make a lot of excuses, but this was all a new process for everyone. And once again, abatements came out because people that were legalizing needed that. If you're going to spend all that money and do legalization, then you don't want the illegal grows. The abatement was to encourage people to come into compliance for those reasons. I think it could have been done way better.
Okay, if there's no rebuttal there, then we'll go to our break for our listeners who may just be recently tuning in. This is KMUD News and the Civil Liberties Monitoring Project hosting a supervisorial forum for candidates for the 2nd District of Humboldt County. We have Michelle Bushnell and Supervisor Estelle Fennell here. We will go to our wonderful engineer, Larry Lashley, who we're going to take a 5-minute break, read the top of the hour, thank our sponsors, and we'll be back with more of this forum.
Okay, thank you, Lauren. And support for KMUD comes from the Lost Whale Inn in Trinidad, a Redwoods bed and breakfast with views of the Pacific Ocean. Featuring 7-course breakfasts and afternoon wine receptions, the Lost Whale Inn has spa services, including massage and a sauna with an ocean view. More information and reservations at lostwhaleinn.com or 1-800-677-7859. It is 7 o'clock, and you are listening to Redwood Community Radio, KMUD, Garberville 91.1 FM, KMUE, Eureka 88.1 FM, KLAI, Laytonville 90.3 FM. We're on the web at kmud.org and at 99.5 FM in Shelter Cove. It's currently 69 degrees in Redway. And Lost Paradise Organics is a locally owned and operated family farm located in Whitethorn, Mendocino County, producing sun-grown organic products distributed throughout California from farm to business. They can be found on Instagram at Lost Paradise Organics or on their website at lostparadiseorganics.com. And KMUD programming is underwritten in part by the law offices of Ed Denson, who remind cannabis cultivators, if you get an abatement order, to not panic, but to contact a qualified attorney immediately. Ed Denson has provided legal services for the cannabis community for over 18 years. Free consultations for criminal defense, cannabis licensing, abatement defense, and environmental charges. 923-4764 or edenson95511 @gmail.com.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Estelle and Michelle, getting ready to go?
Yep.
Okie dokie. Let me tell our engineer. All right, Larry. All right, thank you so much, Larry Lashley. And good evening again to our listeners. If you're just tuning in, this is the second half of our forum. This is Lauren Schmidt from the KMUD News Department. And tonight I am joined by Bonnie Blackberry of the Civil Liberties Monitoring Project, as well as 2nd District Supervisorial Incumbent Estelle Fennell and candidate Michelle Bushnell. For the rest of the hour, we'll continue to ask Estelle and Michelle these questions, and we are going to start to integrate questions from the audience, people who've been calling 707-923-3911. There are quite a few questions. We're going to do our best to get them all answered. Bonnie, if it's okay with you, I'd like to start with 2 questions that were given from members of the audience.
Okay.
I believe the last question started with Estelle, so this one will start with Michelle. Michelle, is hemp for Humboldt County?
I'm not sure right now. Humboldt County is not for hemp, and I would have to do a lot more investigation on it. I would have to probably refer back to my constituents for advice, because it is about what the people would want. And I think that the fear is hemp would get in the way with the sun-grown cannabis that Humboldt County is known for. So I definitely would have to get more advice on that before I would be able to make a decision. But I think that, Humboldt County is really about quality cannabis, and hemp is not that is not something that hemp is.
Estelle Fennell.
Yeah, thank you, Lauren. Okay, so the bottom line here is that we at the Board of Supervisors heard a lot from the community. And at first there was a lot of pressure to actually go towards allowing commercial hemp in community, but it really didn't seem like a good fit. And with that input from the community, we went with a moratorium on hemp production in the county. One of the things that came out of it, though, was when that came out as a potential, there were a lot of people, I think, who thought if they went for a hemp permit, they wouldn't have to go through all of the cannabis regulations, and that it would cost less. That's one of the reasons we actually came back with this 2,000 square foot small farmer permit, where you have less requirements. You have to live on the land. You have to have had a home on the land as of 2015, December 2015, and it has to be within a certain area, 2,000 square feet, but you don't have the kind of additional costs that you would have with a larger grow. That kind of came out of what we saw as people wanting to do hemp. The one thing about hemp is that really to make hemp as a food and fiber takes up a lot of space, and you've got to have huge machines to process it. And it's much more suited to the valley, let's say. Now, some people were talking about CBD, but under the regulations, you can grow CBD. But again, hemp as a food and fiber, just not a very good fit for Humboldt County.
Okay, this next question will start with you, Estelle. This comes from Willow Creek, one of our listeners. This listener would like to know if you currently are cultivating cannabis, and how would you determine if something you're voting on is a conflict of interest, and would you recuse yourself?
Well, I'm not growing cannabis, so obviously, if I was going to be fit from it, I couldn't make any policy decisions that would be a conflict with that. So, but I'm not, and I haven't been. So that's not enough for me.
Michelle Bushnell, same question.
Read the question again, please.
The listener from Willow Creek would like to know, are you currently cultivating cannabis? And if so, how would you determine, if elected, how would you determine if something you're voting on is a conflict of interest, and would you recuse yourself?
So yes, I am currently cultivating cannabis. And I also have a retail business. I also have a THP, and I also own logging trucks. In the Board of Supervisors, retail business comes up a lot. So whether it would be a conflict of interest or not, I'm not sure, because I do a little bit of all of it. I'm also a cattle rancher. So I think it gives me a bigger, broader mind. And if I had to, yes, I would. But at what business would I need to recuse myself from making decisions? It's about Humboldt County. I'm a business lady and I have a lot of endeavors. I don't think that I know that my decisions that would be based with 4 other supervisors would be for the benefit and the better of the people in Humboldt County.
Thank you,
And
Michelle.
I would, and also, if I could just say, if it involved me personally, if it was about my permits, absolutely, I would step out of that.
Thank you, Michelle. And Supervisor Fennell, did I see your hand?
Yes, you did. So it's very important to recognize conflict of interest laws. There are 2 things: conflict of interest, appearance of conflict of interest. But a conflict of interest basically says if it affects your bottom line. And so if you're making policy decisions based on something that affects your bottom line, then you have a conflict. And so there may be some situations where if you were in that position, you would have to recuse yourself. And I think that's an important thing for people to understand.
Michelle?
Yes, as I said, if it was personally affecting me or my bottom line, I would, yes.
Thank you so much. Bonnie, do you want to take these next questions?
Okay, yeah, I have a couple questions about the Garberville Veterans Hall. And I'd like to ask, what are your thoughts on the current state of the building? And is it a priority to fix it? And if it is, what will you do to help that happen? So I guess I'm starting with Estelle.
Okay, so the Vets Hall is a really troubling situation. Okay, so we started off with mold being found in the Vets Hall. The court was co-located with Vets. Court said that they were going to close because of that mold. The county then looked in and did a study and found that the mold had actually really spread, and it was a very dangerous situation. Talk about things making you sick, that very sick. So it was closed down, and then the question was whether or not it should be fixed, or put a roof on it, as some people said, fix the ducts, or if it was better to do a new building. And the studies that were done basically said it was a pretty even thing, maybe even less expensive in the long run to do a new building. So that's where we're at right now. On October 27th, the facilities master plan for the county is going to be before the Board of Supervisors. And I personally am going to advocate that the rebuilding of the Vets Hall is a priority. I've given the vets my word. I will stand by that, and I hope that you'll stand with me in setting up for that. In the meantime, I do really understand the issue that the vets are facing, and I want it addressed as soon as possible. We're also dealing with the Americans with Disabilities Act. The county is under a federal consent decree where every building that the county owns or operates has to be compliant with ADA regulations. And that plays a huge part in what that building is going to be like. And of course, I wanted to co-locate with the courts as well. Want to see that when we put that building back up.
Thank you. And Michelle?
Bonnie, can you read the question again?
Sure. The Garberville Veterans Hall, what are your thoughts on the current state of the building, and what would you, is it a priority, and what would you do to help fix it?
Well, I'm very saddened that at the state of the Vets Hall and the way that the veterans have been waiting, I believe 12 years. While it didn't happen on Estelle's watch, it's been 8 years on her watch that nothing has happened. And I know that she has a $2.5 million trailer coming in, but that's not going to be a Vets Hall. They need a venue. They need somewhere where they can gather. They need somewhere where they can have events to raise funds. They want their Vets Hall on their property. And I hope sincerely that when she says she's getting it, it's a priority to her. I wanted a priority for me. How to get there, I'm not in her position right now, so I don't have all those answers. And those types of answers come when you're a supervisor. But it's not okay that they don't have their Vets Hall. That Vets Hall has been used in our community for venues for years. My grandfather's funeral was there. He was a World War II vet. A lot of funerals were there. We don't have a lot of venues in Southern Humboldt, and that one was utilized a lot. I understand the mold issue. Now I don't know if it's repairable because it's been so long. And I really hope that we can, as a community and as a county, can get a Vets Hall back in the same place for them, that they can continue on with what they do. And we owe them that. We owe them that respect. We do.
Okay, thank you.
I'd like to
Lauren?
say something more.
Yes.
Bonnie, I'd like to say a little more. The bottom line here is, yeah, absolutely. Veterans in my family, I'd help veterans find housing, all of those things, very important to me. And I think that this is an extremely unfortunate situation. But again, if we work together, maybe we'll get it done. And that's what I'm asking the vets. Let's work together on this. Let's go up there and talk with my 4 colleagues. And also, of course, we have to deal with the economy the way it is. But the bottom line is we can prioritize this. There's already money in there to get this started. And I think we should.
Okay,
Bonnie, I'd like to say something.
sure.
Okay, thank you. It's been 8 years. Prioritize, it's been 8 years. I don't understand. My grandfather was so proud of his service. The vets are so proud of their service. I have vets in my family, and 8 years it's been. So, well, 8 years since you've been on a supervisor and before that. So yes, let's get it done. Let's get it going.
Okay, I think it was closed, what, 2016? Is that?
That's correct.
Yeah.
That's exactly right.
Okay.
Thank you, Bonnie.
Lauren, did
Yeah, thank you, Bonnie. So while we're talking about a building, I thought we'd go to this question. With many unpermitted structures in the county, do you support the Safe Homes program, and would you vote to extend it? And we'll start, I believe, with Estelle for this one.
Okay, absolutely. Yes, I would vote to extend it, Lauren. I think that it's working. There are quite a number of people now who have taken advantage of it. And I think that we just need a little bit more time because not everybody's done it. And I would definitely like to extend it. You got my word on that.
Thank you, Estelle. Michelle Bushnell.
Yes, I'm in support of it. And yes, if I'm elected, I would work to extend it also.
Okay, thank you. Switching gears here, going to the environment. This question was coming from one of our listeners tonight. Do you support the continued diversions of the Eel River to the Russian River? And what do you make of the current status of the Potter Valley project? And we'll start with you, Michelle.
No, I don't support them, and I am not up to speed on all of this. I do read about it. I also, being in my current position, I have a job and I'm not a supervisor at this time. So I would have to, um, I would have to refer to the professionals and bring myself up to speed on what's going on with all of it. And our water is our water. It's not anybody else's water. It's our water.
Estelle Fennell, same question.
Yeah, that's a very big issue for me, Lauren. The Potter Valley project diverts a tremendous amount of Eel River water and at the Scott Dam and also at another dam further down. We're currently in the process. I'm on the Eel Russian River Commission. I'm also representing the county on the Potter Valley project committee that is looking at working with the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission to actually take charge of it. And the big thing that I have worked with my colleagues on is to ensure that we look at taking down the Scott Dam in order to provide fish passage to about 100 acres or more, 100 miles, I guess, actually, of grounds for them that's upstream of the dam. And surprisingly enough, the Sonoma County Water Agency and the Potter Valley residents are open to that, which is an amazing thing to say about working together. And I will say thank you to Congressman Huffman, who worked at the concept of the two basin solution. So that's currently now, we have a plan in place to look at how this could be done. A lot of studies got to happen, but we want to see it managed on a regional level to make sure that the residents of Potter Valley and Ukiah, et cetera, are not left completely without the water source, but at the same time that the water comes back into the Eel and that the Scott Dam comes down. And that will in itself be a huge issue that will be on for years. And I look forward to continuing with my work on that. It's one of those things I'm extremely passionate about. I really appreciate the opportunity to work with people who, when we first started working together, were looking at each other like, wow, you're completely on a different sides of this, but we're working together and it's coming together and I'm very happy about it.
Keeping with the environmental theme, folks want to know, do you, and this question will be for you to start off with, Estelle, do you believe in climate change? And as supervisor, would you support and implement the changes required to reverse its effects?
Oh, I'm already working on that, Lauren. I mean, I was out talking with some CAL FAR guys just recently, and they said, when I'm asked, do I believe in climate change? They just say, I believe in what I can see and what I know. And what we know is that we have sea level rise. We have incredible fire seasons now. We have a lot of issues. We have melting ice caps, etc. Climate is changing. It's not a question of believing in it. It's happening. Now, as far as what we're going to do about it, Humboldt County is involved in a climate action plan. That's very much a big part of what I'm working on, as well as we're also looking at, what are the things that cause the problems? We have to look at sea level rise, and we have to look at the fact that the Bay Area around the Humboldt Bay is also subject to subsidence. So we could be in a really big situation here. We have to keep mindful of it. So looking at, in that climate action plan, of course, is clean energy. And I'm on the Redwood Coast Energy Authority. And we already are looking at offshore wind. We have solar projects. We have 2 solar projects that are slated to go out on Highway 36. We hope to have more and more of those microgrids helping, but we also have to look at the other aspects of climate change. And one of those is fire. We have to look at prescribed burns, all of the things that will keep our forests and forest management, because they are so subject now to the vagaries of the weather, very hot summer, very dry vegetation. So we have to look at forest management as well as part of that climate action plan.
Okay, Michelle, same question. Do you believe in climate change? And as supervisor, would you support and implement the changes required to reverse its effects?
Yes, I believe in climate change. And one thing that, if I'm elected, I'm really excited to learn more of this. Obviously, I'm not at a supervisor position and they have inside information or more information, I should say, not inside. But yes, I would really advocate for policy change to go along with climate change to make things better.
Excellent. Bonnie, if I may, this is from a listener. As a candidate, do you support the goal to be energy carbon neutral as far as energy in Humboldt County by 2025? And Michelle, we'll start with you.
Yes, yes, and I think that a state law is you have to reduce your carbon footprint. And so, yes, I would support moving in that direction.
Estelle?
Yes, I do. It is a heavy lift. Now, the state doesn't require it in 2025. The state's goal is 2035. However, the Redwood Community Energy Agency, RDA, we have devoted and said that we would try to get there by 2025. If we can't have the energy nailed down, let's say, for instance, we have the wind energy project, it's going to take some time. We'll just acquire clean energy through the CAISO system. But the bottom line is that, yes, we absolutely have to move in that direction. Fossil fuels are, going to have to make their way out of our reality. And we have to look at the reality that we're faced with, which is an absolute clear that clean energy is the answer.
And Bonnie, sorry to, if I may ask, just tag on to that. And Estelle, we'll start with you. Community members want to know where you stood with the Terrigen wind farm and what your stance is now with the offshore proposed project.
Well, I get a little flack for this because my tagline when I finally made my vote on that after a lot of work on seeing the benefits and the downfalls of it is a great project, wrong place. And I think that, and I have not changed my view on that at all. I think also, by the way, the Terrigen project told us a lot about what it means to do business in Humboldt County. And what it should mean is you make sure to bring the local people into the picture. That was weakly managed by Terrigen for sure. And that was very clear as people came out to voice their concerns. But it wasn't just that, it was also looking at the unmitigatable situations that would occur out of that. And there were too many unmitigatable impacts. One, maybe two, but there were a lot. And I just can't go with that. As far as the wind project offshore, I support that. And I can tell you with certainty that that's being addressed in a very different way, bringing people in, all the stakeholders right from the beginning. And stakeholders will be involved in that process. I'm involved also as a member of the Bureau of Ocean Energy Management Advisory Committee of those offshore. And so we'll be looking at all of that as we go forward. And I think it does have a very good chance of providing an amazing amount of power for Humboldt County, a lot of local jobs, great enterprise.
Okay, Michelle, a quick refresher with the question, where did you stand with the Terrigen land-based wind project? And what is your stance currently on the proposed offshore wind project?
The Terrigen project, I had very little information. I followed it, of course, in the papers, and I went to the hearing up in Eureka. Jobs are great and we need to bring them in, but our environment is key in keeping our county what it is known for. I think that the project probably was a really good project from what of course, wind power is a great source. I'm not sure, obviously the location, there was a lot of issues with the location. Without being privy to all the staff reports and all the information, I, at this time, couldn't make a, a determination except for what I know, which is the supervisor said that there were too many, not problems with it that couldn't be worked out. And as far as offshore winds, yes, of course, I would say yes to offshore winds also, but would hope that we learned from the TerraGen project and would work towards having those solutions in place before it came forward to either the Planning Commission or the Board of Supervisors.
Thank you, Michelle. Bonnie, I wanted to get back to you to ask some questions.
Okay. Let me see. I guess I'm starting with Estelle. There's a lot of emphasis on keeping the lands and water clean from cannabis-related operations. Do you believe the logging industry should be held to the same standards?
Bonnie, I couldn't hear what you were saying. Can you repeat the question? I'm sorry, I didn't hear the beginning of it.
Okay. There's a lot of emphasis on keeping the land and water clean from cannabis-related operations. Do you believe the logging industry should be held to the same standards?
Yes, and it is actually. The fact of the matter is, I think that in the earlier times of the logging industry in Humboldt County, there were a lot of destructive practice, and anyone who is honest will tell you that's true. I've spoken to lots of loggers who just, said, we didn't do such a great job, Estelle. But now there are a lot of regulations on road building and setbacks, etc., and those are all there to do the same things that are being asked now of the cannabis industry. And I've actually, it's kind of funny because I've got quite a few friends in that industry, and I remember them saying to me when I was getting a lot of flack about the cannabis industry, and they said, well, welcome to our world. There's a lot of regulations out there to protect the environment. And we need to keep that. We need to keep that in mind. Logging created a tremendous amount of siltation, destroyed our fisheries and all of those, but through some of the larger land holdings, and you see roads, some amazing roads out there, and that's all as a result of those regulations.
Okay. So, Michelle.
Bonnie, will you repeat the question?
Sure. There's lots of emphasis on keeping the land and water clean from cannabis-related operations. Do you believe the logging industry should be held to the same standards?
Thank you, Bonnie. They are held to the same standards. I have a THP and I have a cannabis permit, and the process for both is very similar. And the emphasis on the THP, which is a timber harvest production plan, is you have to do exactly the same almost as cannabis to ensure the waterways, to ensure the roads, to ensure the silt doesn't run off. It is a very good process, and it does encourage the environmental safety for Humboldt County, and they are the same. They work. And I believe too what Estelle said, just to piggyback on, we've progressed as we've logging has been around for a long time, and going forward and knowing that we have to preserve our environment, we've learned better tactics, we've learned better ways to do that and to keep our environment better. I have to say that owning property and logging on that property, my goal is to keep my property beautiful. I want to do whatever that entails to keep it. I love where I live. I love how it looks, and I don't want to ruin that. And neither does any other logger or cannabis grower that's trying really hard.
Okay. So I have two more questions kind of related. And I'll start with Estelle. Do you support hack and squirt? And would you support a moratorium on clear cutting?
So first of all, I'm very happy to answer the question, but I want to point out you keep on asking me first. So I'm going to let Michelle go first on this one, if you don't mind.
Okay,
Hi, thank you. Bonnie, repeat the question, please.
do you support hack and squirt? And would you support a moratorium on clear cutting?
I think a hack and squirt is an old process, and I don't particularly like it. No, and the say that the rest of that question, please. Clear
Would
cutting.
you support a moratorium on clear cutting?
I don't think clear cutting is helpful for our area at all. I think that at certain instincts it is needed. For instance, with a fire like we're having right now, they're going to have to clear cut that. It's going to be a salvage cleanup is what it is. I think in certain instances, the clear cutting is necessary, but for bug kill or for fire salvage, like what's going on right now, I think that it is necessary at times.
Okay. And Estelle, do you want me to repeat them?
I know. I think so. So what I want to say about hack and squirt is that again, long before I was supervisor, I was KMUD news director, and I remember covering those stories regarding hack and squirt. And actually, where hack and squirt came out of was the spraying of pesticides that people objected to very strongly. They did not want aerial spraying, and they did not want spraying by hand. So the hack and squirt was the answer. Well, now, as always, we learn other things. Hack and squirt can result in a lot of dead and dying trees standing out there on these very dry hillsides and being a fire danger. So we're going to have to look at that and see if there's yet another way that we can manage our forests. And there are a lot of people doing a lot of work on how best to manage forests. And so that again is something that's got to be looked at. As for clear cutting, I think again, I'll go back to KMUD News and doing all those stories and meeting with people talking about the clear cutting that was happening at the time, and it was horrendous. I remember flying over the Palco's lands, and somebody said it looked like a mangy dog. It just was not good looking. So there is an argument made by the timber industry that small clear cuts can happen as a part of forest management. And I know that Green Diamond does it. They only have second growth. They don't have any old growth. They don't have any of that. So, you know, there may be an argument there. They do a good job of managing for the most part. So again, definitely keep an eye on it. We don't want it to be something that is detrimental to our environment or our forests.
Okay. Should I ask another question?
Bonnie, do you mind if I ask one real quick on this topic?
Sure.
This came from a listener. They want to know what your stance is on the widening of Richardson Grove through Highway 101. I believe Michelle started that last round. So Supervisor Fennell, your thoughts on the widening of Richardson Grove?
Well, as I've said all along, the bottom line is, for the most part, it was in the courts, and it's still some sort of limbo of legal strategy. I have said all along that Richardson Grove was being portrayed as something where we were going to lose all these redwood trees. And the fact of the matter was we weren't. And so the widening was not really a good way to put it. It was a realignment to allow those trucks through. That being said, I think it's kind of in a stalemate right now. And there has been a lot of work done on other roads, Highway 199, etc. So we'll see how that pans out, if Richardson Grove even becomes an issue in the long term. I know I've been working with Tom Wheeler of EPIC. We've been looking at those kinds of things, trying to get people to work together. We just had a very successful teamwork approach to potential removal of old growth out in Grizzly Creek, and that's not going to happen because Tom went out there and met with Caltrans, and they came up with a good solution. So that's the way to do things. And for now, Richardson Grove is kind of on stasis, and I really don't know what's going to happen with that.
And Michelle Bushnell.
I also think that possibly it could happen if it was done in a way that the larger old growth trees weren't taken out, but maybe navigated around. When you go down there, you can clearly see that it wouldn't be it could possibly happen without destruction of those trees. So I would be in favor of it if it wasn't destructive of the old growth redwoods that are there. I think that it would allow passage for some of the trucks to come in for deliveries to our local commerce that would decrease freight amounts if possible, if it could be done. But there are alternative routes if it can't be done without losing the old growth trees.
Thank you both. Bonnie, I'll throw it back to you.
Okay, I just have a quick follow-up. Would you support having stoplights put in instead of having it widened? I guess I'll start with Michelle.
I think stoplights could work there. There's already a decreased speed limit, a large decreased speed limit. And if it would allow it would please people to have the stoplight and be able to get the trucks through for deliveries, I think it could possibly work. I think there would have to be a lot of studies, though. You don't want to create more hazards in that area.
Okay, and Estelle.
Yeah, well, actually, there are studies being done, and one of those is to see if the truck can actually get through, you know, and how often they cross over the yellow line, and how that could be done. And I will say also that I believe there is an avenue to find a solution there, and I'm actually working on it. But I do believe there's a solution.
Okay, so I have a couple of questions on another topic, and I'd like each of you to share your thoughts on how you think Measure Z, or O, the sales tax, has played out in our community, and do you think the Sheriff's Department should remain the top beneficiary from this tax? Okay, so who do we start with last?
Me, it's Estelle.
Okay, so
Okay,
we'll
so
start with Estelle.
Bonnie, thank you. I heard the first part of it about the Measure Z, and I'm happy to answer that. Can you tell me what the second part of it was? You broke up there a little bit.
Okay, do you think the Sheriff's Department should remain the top beneficiary from this tax?
Oh, yes, okay. All right. Well, first of all, yes, I'm extremely grateful for voting for Measure Z. I worked hard on that. I think it has proved that we can help ourselves when you have situations like we had before the passage of Measure Z, which was we didn't have any law enforcement coverage down here at nighttime. People could do whatever they felt like doing. We had very, very little law enforcement. And I remember going to community meetings that were out the door, standing room only, people concerned about the situation. So I'm very, very happy that the citizens of Humboldt County supported Measure Z. Measure Z is basically for safety. The other part of Measure Z that I really pushed for and fought for, actually, a real issue for me was that fire should be included in that. And in fact, fire is. So I think as we go forward into the future, and we're looking at revenue and what Measure C is going to look like, I think we always have to keep public safety at the top of the pile. That's got to keep going. So the sheriff, the DA, firefighters, those are the people whom we must really support. The ambulances, those kind of things. But I don't think that the sheriff is getting too big of a slice of Measure C. The sheriff needs it. and we need the sheriff.
Okay, and Michelle, did you want me to repeat those questions?
Yes, please, Bonnie.
Okay, so just your thoughts on how Measure Z or O has played out in our community, and do you think the Sheriff's Department should remain the top beneficiary from this tax?
Thank you. In unincorporated areas, such as the second district has a large unincorporated area, and I believe Measure Z is so important for all of Humboldt County, but especially in the unincorporated areas where we don't have our own police department. When the Measure O and Measure Z came out, one of the criteria was for public safety, and that's what the people voted on. So yes, I do 100% believe that the Sheriff's Department needs to remain a large beneficiary of that monies. Also, the fire departments, our volunteer fire departments in our rural areas are 95% first on response for any traffic accident, fire, any medical call, and they need that support. They need their gear, and especially now more than ever with COVID, they don't have the opportunities to raise funds as they did. And so I think that I know that the Measure Z monies are going to good use there. And public safety is a huge, and it is a large thought on everybody's mind. And I'm glad too that Humboldt County passed Measure O, which now is still Measure Z, for those public safety officers and ambulances, fire departments, and the Sheriff's Department. And mental health, mental health gets some too, which is so important.
Okay,
Right.
how about roads? Do roads get anything out of that? Somehow I thought that was part of public safety.
Yes, oh, sorry, go ahead, Michelle.
No, go ahead, Estelle. Me not being a supervisor, you know more about this, so please answer that.
Well, yeah, we have, especially we were early on, we definitely had more money that we could give to the roads, and we did. We still make roads a component of Measure Z. It is up to the Measure Z Advisory Committee, which is a citizens committee, and we take their what they represent as the most important priorities. So definitely roads are a priority. Luckily, we have SB1 funds too that have helped us enormously with our roads. And so they're not quite in the same situation, let's say, as our volunteer firefighters and those kind of guys who really need it. But yeah, if we can, as part of the Measure Z money, some money, share some money with the road department, absolutely.
Bonnie, can I say something, please?
Sure.
I just want to say that Measure Z funds are sales tax based, and it's Humboldt County sales tax. So one thing you get for spending your money local is you get part of this Measure Z funding to help with your roads and to help with your fire departments. And it's more important now more than ever to spend your money local so that we can beef up Measure Z to help continue helping with these entities. I think it's very important.
Okay, Bonnie, do you mind if I ask my final question before we get to
Hey,
the
fine, go
statement?
ahead.
Okay, and this, I'm kind of going to group it all in. I apologize. I believe, Michelle, this one, we'll start with you. I'm going to kind of group it in on the topic of fire. A listener stated that there was preferential treatment for ranchers and permitted cannabis growers during the recent fire evacuations. Mendocino County seems to have worked out something for anyone needing to deal with animals or gardens. Would you support and advocate for Humboldt to have the same policy? What do you think could be improved, updating the public during the fires, and how have you been able to help?
Lauren, can you read it again? Maybe, I'm sorry.
No
It's a
problem.
long question.
It's a lot. It's a lot. To summarize,
It's a long question.
it's a very long question. Someone stated that they believe that there was preferential treatment for ranchers and permitted cannabis growers during the recent fires, not for people who may have abandoned chickens or dogs due to the need to evacuate. Mendocino County seems to have a different policy than Humboldt County that does allow people to tend to their tomatoes and chickens and not just cattle and cannabis. Do you believe Humboldt should have a similar policy? And do you think Humboldt should be better at updating the public during the fire? And how have you been able to help during this crisis?
So I think, yes, for one thing, this fire is very largest in California, and with a lot of unique things going on. I think that we definitely need to have a better policy and procedures in place for next time when we have road closures that keep people out for extended amounts of times, remembering that those road closures are for people's safety, but also we have to remember people's livelihoods and their homes and their gardens that they live on and their animals. So I would absolutely support getting a better policy or procedure in place for that. And I'm sorry, Lauren, that's such a long question. Can you read it again? I'm sorry.
And the second part to that is, do you think the county could have been better at updating the public?
Oh.
And the third part of that is, how have you been able to help during that crisis?
Yeah, so yes, updating the public, there's always a lot of rumors going around. There's a lot of, fire is not stable. It's not stable. You can't report right now and have the same condition an hour from now. So yes, I think better updating could occur. I think one thing that happened is the fire was in Trinity, not in Humboldt. So that may have not helped Humboldt with getting information out, although Humboldt County residents were affected. Myself, what I've done, I live in the fire, I'm in the fire area. And so what I just did was what anybody in this area would do, was just help my neighbors. And my ranch being threatened by fire, I've gotten the same back. My neighbors have been willing to help me. So what I've done is just help my neighbors, help my communities, and help my surrounding counties and communities. Everyone pulls together during a fire. I'm not special. I didn't do anything special. There's lots of people that have helped.
Thank you, Michelle Bushnell. Estelle Fennell.
Yeah, this is just such a difficult situation, and I feel so bad for people like Michelle and everybody else who had that order, not a warning, an order, evacuation order. So as far as policies and procedures, those are already in place. They're part of any emergency response. An evacuation order means you need to get out of there, and you can't go back until it's safe. This is a situation where we have people living in the hills, etc. But with our cannabis legalization, we do have people with businesses that were asking if they could come in to either harvest or water or whatever, and then go back out in the evening. And there were people who had on their ranches who needed to be able to get into their livestock. And so that is something that CAL FAR has done in the past, because I talk with them. Believe you me, I don't know how many phone calls I fielded on this one. It's a very difficult situation, and I hope we don't have to deal with that again, because the chances are, they'll be even more strict. Let's put it that way. And so we really need to understand that CAL FAR is looking out for everybody's safety, and they are putting themselves at risk on our behalf. So that being said, I do think that it's really, really difficult to be in that situation. Talked with the firefighters from CAL FAR. Several of them actually had their homes burned and were still fighting fires. So with that, as far as the county updating, the county did its very best, so did CAL FAR. But it was a very quickly moving situation, and it was hard to get information out in some of those areas just because of the lack of ability to get those words out. But everybody did their best, and I am so grateful to everybody who worked on that. So grateful. And
Excellent.
Lauren, could I say something?
Please.
So I think that when at the time that it became available that ranchers and cannabis growers could enter for 6 hours and then return to take care of their cannabis farms and their livestock. At that point, obviously, the extreme danger was lower. And I do think we need to work on a policy that would allow for vegetable gardens and for that kind of thing too. A lot of our families, especially in the rural areas, they grow all of their food. And I think that I know if we let cannabis farmers in and ranchers back in for 6 hours, then it was safe for the gardeners to go in also. And it's just something we need to work on as moving forward. And like Estelle said, I hope it never happens again.
Estelle, one rebuttal.
Yeah, I mean, I want to actually answer the rest of the question. I didn't use all my time. So that, I mean, I used too much of it. What did I do? I was in communication with the farm managers, incident management team, nonstop with the sheriff, and we were making these kind of decisions, and answering all sorts of questions and trying to help people as best as we could. But I would caution Michelle to think that she can change a policy that's set in place for saving lives. This is a CAL FAR policy. CAL FAR called the shots. We tried and worked with them, and they made an allowance for this. They've done it with past with vineyards down in the south. But the bottom line is, they call the shots. And our lives are in their hands, and we have to listen.
Okay, and we are coming to a head with this wonderful, informative 2nd District supervisorial form. We did flip that coin, and it's my understanding that, Michelle, you will start with your closing statement, and then we'll go to Estelle.
Actually, I started with an opening statement.
So we will close with Estelle Fennell, if you'd like to share your final statements.
Oh, so who goes first, Lauren, me or her?
Yeah. Whoever you want, Michelle.
Oh, I don't care, Estelle, you can go ahead. Or do you want me to start? It doesn't matter. I thought you were
Go
to
ahead.
start closing because I opened.
That's fine with me. I'm good
Okay.
to go.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah. Thanks a lot. I appreciate that. Well, first of all, thanks to everyone, especially KMUD's Lauren and Larry, and the Civil Liberties Monitoring Project, Bonnie and team, Natalie, and of course the listeners and those of you who stayed with us, considering that there is another historic debate happening on the presidential level between California Senator Kamala Harris and Vice President Mike Pence. I'm saying that for the history books. This election is about who will guide and serve us through the next 4 years. I believe strongly that experience and strong leadership matter, and that's what I provide. I have a proven track record of working with my community to get things done. I have the skills and the courage to move this county forward in a positive direction. I believe strongly in teamwork and respectful collaboration. I've been serving for 2 terms now, and during that time have worked on and developed trusted relationships at the county, regional, state, and federal levels, which is essential for me as 2nd District Supervisor to bring needed services, resources, and funding to my district and the county as a whole. I'm proud to represent 2nd District, and I look forward to continuing my service in the coming years. I really appreciate, again, everybody being involved here. I'm endorsed by a number of people who I've worked with, including state and local elected officials, the sheriffs of both Humboldt and Mendocino counties, local trades union, the deputy sheriff's organization, and lots, hundreds of our local community members. So thank you all for your support. It would be my honor to serve you for another 4 years, and I'm asking for your vote.
Thank you, Estelle Fennell, and Michelle Bushnell, your final thoughts for this evening.
Thank you. I first want to thank KMUD and everybody at your facility there for putting this on tonight. Can't say that I was very ready. I have been dealing this fire thing, but I'm so glad that I'm here and that I was able to answer questions. I would encourage anybody to look up my website, bushnell2020.org, if you have more questions, and to call me or email me with questions. My list of accomplishments obviously are not as long as Estelle's. Being a supervisor for 8 years, she has a lot of accomplishments to talk about. I bring a lot of energy and passion for the 2nd District. I'm on the grounds person. I want to get in the middle of it. I want to find out what people want. I want to represent the constituents of the 2nd District. I want to have firsthand knowledge, what people want. I think that I know the job of supervisor is representing your constituents in your second district. I feel that I'm a good fit for this position. I want to ask you for your vote on November 3rd, and I look forward to accomplishing a lot and moving Humboldt County forward also in a very positive way, benefiting the second district, not only the second district, because I believe benefiting Humboldt County as a whole will make us successful as Humboldt County residents. Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle, and thank you, Estelle. This has just been such a wonderful evening. Bonnie, I know you wanted to say some final thoughts before we let our listeners go.
Okay. I want to thank both Michelle and Estelle for being here tonight, and encourage the listeners, if they have any questions to contact the candidates. And I want to say that democracy of the people, by the people, and for the people depends on the people participating in the process, and very importantly, voting. And hopefully tonight, some people got some information that will help them decide who they're going to vote for. So thank you all for listening, and good luck.
Yeah, best of luck to both you, Michelle, and to you, Estelle. Big thank you to Natalie West, our volunteer timekeeper with the Shelter Cove Pioneers. You are awesome. Larry Lashley over there in Studio C. Thank you so much, Larry, our smooth operator. In case you missed it tonight, don't worry. We are going to post this on social media with video and all, almost better than radio. And of course, we are going to go to the vice presidential debate. Stay tuned. So much more information to be learned. Thank you all so much.
Thank you. Good night.
Bye. Night.